solve the immediate problem, I would just say warning letters for the next 30 days. That's where I stand on it.
I would rather see a warning letter, and then if they do it again, give them the $60 citation, and every time after that, give them that citation. $60 into, I mean, an administrative citation, how much time do you think that takes? Do you think it takes more than $60 worth of time, or less? Or is
Probably
that,
less until you get the non-compliance factor, and then the other option is what happens when they're non-compliant. Like if we write you an administrative citation for speed, you don't pay it, we'll then follow up and write you a court citation for the same thing. Otherwise, the other avenue is I turn those numbers over to Mr. Betker at the end of the year, and he does the assessments. So, I mean, so there's other, depending on what happens with those fines.
On those types of fees, because there's not a benefited parcel, that would not be an assessable deal. So
So the only option we have is then to issue them misdemeanor citations after the fact, if they don't pay it within a certain amount of time. So if we write somebody an administrative citation and we don't get the $60 fine within 30 days, then they get a misdemeanor citation. And if we wrote them a $60 citation, let's just say we wrote them a letter, 7 days later, we're going out there and day 8, day 9, day 10, day 11, day 12, day 13, now you're talking 14 or 15 days in a row that you're writing administrative citations that they're watering illegally. You know, technically you'd write 15 misdemeanor citations if they don't pay their tickets. I'm not sure if that's gonna solve the watering issues or not, but it's definitely gonna get somebody's attention.
Matt, you said a lot of the problem is people have these systems set up automatic. They're automatic, they're all timed, and they just maybe don't even know that they're supposed to have them on odd, even days.
I think that's part of it, because it's not old houses. These are houses that had irrigation put in. They want to keep that lawn nice and green. And when they got them put in, they could water every day because of their sod, and then just never switched it back to the even odd days. I think that's what part of it is. And then a lot of people have the irrigation, you know, start up in the spring of the year and fix the irrigation heads, and in the fall, they have somebody come out and shut it off and blow the irrigation heads out, and, you know what I mean? A lot of people do that, so.
I guess I think we should give them a warning letter, and then if they break the rules, give them the citation, and then eventually, I mean, isn't that what laws are for? To get people to follow them, like to stop, and that's why you kind of do that. I don't know. It's not like it's $60. I mean, $60 after the second time isn't that big of a deal. I mean, it's not a huge fine. It's not like it's $5,000.
It's not how the city works, so like Travis said, they can find them every, I don't know. If, let's say somebody's automated and he went on vacation for 2 weeks, Travis could give him a warning letter, he didn't comply, so then they get a fine, and then another fine, and then another fine, another fine, they come back a month later, and all of a sudden, they have a stack of fines.
So could we say, like, is that an everyday thing, or could we stipulate if we give them one every 7 days, or could we stipulate that? I don't know where to go with this. I mean, nobody else has really taught, like.
I don't know, it's an interesting concept, but it's, there's nothing that says, I mean, when you turn your sprinkler on every day, it's a violation if it's in violation of that day. Every other day, so you get a ticket every other day. It doesn't, you know, so there's no really, you can't really define that. So every day that it violates the ordinance, it would be a violation.
Right.
So that's the problem with having so if the direction is enforce that ordinance as it's written, I mean, technically every other day they'd be issued a citation until they comply. Which again, if that's gonna curtail the water on that one individual person, probably not. It probably will on 98% of everybody else, but we are gonna have those outliers of those issues. And I just want you guys to give us direction ahead of time rather than when we deal with it. Because that's gonna happen. We're gonna have ones that are gonna be watering on every day they're not supposed to. So then, the person that we wrote a ticket to right next to them, and they stopped, but we don't write a ticket to this guy every day that he waters for the next 3 weeks, is that fair in that respect?
So to address George's point about, say, if someone's out of town for a month, and then they get all these fines, and they don't realize it or whatever, could they come in here afterwards and talk to us about that and get out of the misdemeanor type stuff, or is that, how does that work? Because, I mean, obviously, like an extenuating circumstance, like, you know, they weren't home to get their mail, or,
No, they'd have to go see the administrative law judge and try to get the administrative law judge to change
Okay.
the fine
Yes,
amount.
that process is very detailed outline.
okay.
But I just envision if we're doing 100% enforcement like that, we are gonna have parcels that are never gonna be in compliance, and there's gonna be hanging paper on them on every other day, up to a point of, obviously, administrative citations aren't being effective, but is it adequately fair for the persons that complied? So, just those are things to think about. It's not an easy solution of just saying, let's enforce it, and let's not enforce it.
I'm gonna side with Councilman Heeman. I'm gonna just say, let's try it for 30 days. Hopefully that tower's back up and working by then and resolve some of this issue. But I think for right now, I think we should just give them a verbal warning and say.
Written, you mean
Yeah,
written warning?
written warning, yeah, excuse me, written warning, and proceed with that and see what happens. 9 out of 10 people are gonna comply. That's the one that's not. Is that gonna be make or break? I don't think so.
Can I ask how those written warnings are handled? Are they mailed?
They would be mailed, yes.
Okay.
Yep, so they'd be mailed, and written warnings for code enforcement are issued by the community service officer on Isani letterhead,
Okay.
not on our logo. I mean, it's from our address, it's from the police department, just it's a little less informal, if that makes sense. That's how our first letters are written. And then, do you want to deviate from that? We can advise what the potential penalties are in that letter, or just, do you want to advise that they're in violation?
I think we should advise of a potential for a fine. I mean, anytime you see a letter in there, you think you're gonna get fined, you're gonna take it more seriously than one that just says, oh, we hope you just don't do it. It has no body or substance to it without a monetary or some sort of consequence.
Because our regular ordinance letters do lay out what the fine, or what the fines could be if they don't come into compliance, so just wanted to make sure we're on the
Like
same page.
$60 per day of, $65 per day of on-compliance or whatever. Just lay it out, that doesn't mean you have
Right.
to,
I just
but we
want to make sure
could.
that we're on the same page.
yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to do exactly that. So just warning letters with what the fine would be. And try it for 30 days and see if this weather situation changes, if the water tower gets online. And then if we have
Instead
to
of a
have,
warning letter, we send a reminder, a friendly reminder.
yes.
I hate the idea of us being mommy and daddy. Like, we work for these people.
I know.
But also, it's our responsibility
I
to
know
see
it
Take care of
that
the
they have
infrastructure.
water.
I know it is.
I mean,
know it
that's
is.
the whole
But
point. I don't like
I
telling
think
people
we
they
can,
can't do it
I think
either.
we can do it in a friendly way.
I just think giving them a warning letter,
Yeah,
letter
right.
stating
Say,
that.
hey, friendly reminder, we need to be following the even and odd.
So I mean, the other option, like, we can go and calculate, grab violation addresses, and if you'd like the letter to come from somewhere else saying something different rather than a warning violation, I mean, that's another option as well. We can go find the violators.
If
you
we're
wanna call
gonna
it
do that for 30 days anyway, and we're not gonna actually fine people, then I think just a friendly reminder would be a better way to go about it, and I could get behind that.
I can too.
I'm not gonna vote to fine people for disobeying the even and odd watering rules, but a friendly reminder I could definitely get behind.
A friendly reminder with the fact that they could be penalized? Or no? Or no?
That's not a friendly reminder. I think I'm just listening to your guys' conversation at this point, and that's, if you're gonna go that route, I'm just saying, it's not that far of a leap to say, okay, well, let's just try the friendly reminder for 30 days and then see where it goes from there. I think it'll be effective if you put the signs out, and if you do a text and you do friendly reminders. I think that'll be just as effective as saying, hey, we're gonna start fining you, and, we're gonna get after you, and,
I guess,
that's not the approach I wanna take.
I
I
don't
think what you're
Sorry,
talking
if
about is
I could-
targeted,
Sorry,
targeted reminders, right?
What'd you say?
Targeted reminders?
Right, so put the signs out,
But as far as
If we do the
reminders about
text, but then-
targeted addresses.
Yeah, right, if we see them violating it, then just send them a friendly reminder that, hey, because they're probably just like the rest of us, I mean, like you said, I mean, you lived
Yeah.
here your whole life, you had no idea, I mean, how would you like it if they send you a letter and said, hey, you screwed up, we're gonna get after you, because we're so much better than you.
Or not necessarily that, but that you could, because I think there's a lot of people nowadays that think there's like an entitlement thing, and they're gonna think, well, it doesn't really matter, I'm just gonna do it anyway, because that's what I wanna do.
Well,
It's,
yeah.
yeah, so I think the fact that if we put
What's
a,
wrong with that?
Huh?
What's wrong with that attitude?
just because,
general,
just because
it's,
people aren't gonna, people
right.
aren't gonna change their habit unless
Pe-
you,
People should be allowed to do what they wanna do.
Oh,
for the most
right.
part. But we're in a unique situation
Right.
here where we need to work together as a team to try to solve this problem, and so, as far as the city as a whole, I'm saying, not just us up here, I'm not talking, but yeah, that's all I'm saying, is you would respond probably with the attitude, well, I'm gonna do whatever I want anyway, right? But if you
something,
had-
I wouldn't necessarily, but some people, I think a
Well,
lot of
right,
people
okay.
would.
But I mean, if you had just a friendly reminder that, hey, here's the reason that we're asking you to do this. I just
Josie?
think that would be a better way to approach it, at least for the first 30 days, and then we can see it.
Can I ask your input on what you think, listening to council?
Well, one thing I want to just share, we don't use Chapter 65 for administrative citations all that often. We haven't done administrative citations in, I don't even know, 6 years maybe, or it's been a while. However, I just pulled it up, and there is a lawn sprinkling carve-out within that chapter. And so I just want to clarify, it's not the typical $60 admin citation fee as listed in Chapter 160 for city fees. Lawn sprinkling has first, second, and third violations, $20, then $35, then $50. So there is that. Not that that changes what you're just talking about, whether or not to let them know about the fines,
Okay.
but there is a carve-out especially for lawn sprinkling
So it goes 20,
violations.
30, 50?
20, 35, and 50.
Okay.
First violation, second, and third violation.
I guess I'm all for a friendly letter, but I'd like them to know that they could get fined for it, if it becomes a problem. I don't know. That's my 2 cents, because I think we need to do something a little more drastic or,
Well, and I'm not saying you couldn't go to that at some point, I'm just saying if you're not gonna actually issue citations for 30 days, then why not at least start with a friendly reminder letter, and then after that, you could say, well, then now it's gonna be a warning letter with.
I don't
with
think
the
it'll have the
citation.
impact that we need to save our infrastructure. I'm just rather play risk averse on this.
Well, I don't know that we're looking to save our infrastructure necessarily, we're trying to curb our water usage so we don't go over our limit of the 2.7 million, right?
Or something worse happens and we,
It's 270 million. Last year, I think we pumped 240.
and we're already, what did you say, 15 million over this year than last? We're gonna go over.
On track.
We,
Not
yeah,
necessarily. We have 30,000 to spare, so if we're at 15 and we're almost at the halfway mark.
no, 15 just in this month. 15 million over just in this month alone.
Right, compared to last year, so if we're 15 over again for the next half year, we're right at
That's just for
275.
this month, 15 million over, just this month alone. That's
That
not
was
the
June.
whole, that's just
Not
June.
not to date.
That's just this month.
That's what we're on track. If we don't do anything, we're on track. We're pumping 1.5 million gallons a day right now. Last year at this time, we were pumping just over 1 million gallons a day. So last year, the month of June only, just June, was 32 million. Based on the averages we're seeing right now, we're gonna sit at 47 million at the end of this month.
That's 15 million just in this month over. If we see a July that's 15 million, then we're over for the whole year. We're gonna be over. So I think we gotta do something a little more drastic than just a friendly letter.
But I mean, it's.
Well,
what
I
I'm
would
saying
have
is
to
it's
hear
not-
the
it's not
numbers
like
we're
our
at.
Infrastructure is gonna fail at that.
Well, no,
It's-
not necessarily, but it
we may
could
get a-
too.
We may we don't even know, I guess, what the consequences are from it's the DNR, right?
It'd be the DNR, yeah.
So we don't even know what the consequences are. if
I'm
we do
not
go
sure what they are. I'd have to look into it farther to find out what would happen at that point.
Where are we at to date? I'm sorry, I'd like to write that number down, so, to date?
I didn't grab that number. I was just looking at June, what we were at June last year and June this year. I don't know if we're above or below. I would say we're probably somewhat on track in the spring of the year when we had such a late spring. I would say we were on track for pretty close to what we were last year. We maybe are a little under moving into June, but being this drought, we're averaging, I mean, we had
Right.
1.791 million gallons was our average for one day. That's like unheard of. And to average 1.5 right now for us is way, way higher than what it has been.
I'm sure every city is struggling with the situation right now because of this drought.
And with the tower being down contributes a lot to it, but if we have another water main break that could potentially happen, you know, I don't know. I think we squeaked by a little bit on that last one. We were really low in pressure. And had it been a different water main in a different part of town to decide it was gonna do the same thing, those results might have been different. You know, we could have had just the scenario, and Steve, I think you were both there, and we were shutting water off. If we'd had a valve we couldn't get the wrench on, that just takes a little bit longer, run down the block and get on that valve and shut that valve off then, and find that valve. And if that valve wouldn't go off, we've had it happen where we went to shut this intersection off, and one valve just wouldn't shut off. It just, as tight as you turned it off, it just was still letting water squeak by. So we've had to shut multiple gate valves off to isolate one area in the past.
I think we should do a friendly letter, but associate it, that there is a potential for a fine with it at some point. I think that's the medium ground, and hopefully it gets the effect that we need to see the 20%, 30% that he was saying if you do issue citations. But maybe we don't need to issue the citations, but I think we gotta have a firm stance on this, because water's a big deal. I mean, it's the most important thing that we provide our residents.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. But I'm just saying that it's not the infrastructure that's at risk.
It could be, though.
Well, it could be, but I mean, that's not what we're discussing here right now. I mean, we're discussing how do we stay under that number of, and the next thing that we're gonna discuss is the infrastructure, but I mean, it's how do we stay under that number? I just would like to be a little bit more friendly about it than threatening.
I think let's just go with the notice, you're not in compliance, you gotta adhere to our sprinkler ban, let's see what's going on. Let's see what happens. If we do have a person that's persisting to do it, maybe a knock on the door by a city official saying, hey, really, we really want you to look at this, at our standpoint. We could sit here and discuss this thing for
Right.
14 days and never get out of this. I think
So-
just getting out a letter to them stating the fact that, you know, you're not in compliance with city code of odd even sprinkler banning or sprinkling. You need to address this. If it persists, Travis comes up and says, hey, this guy isn't gonna listen. Hey, bud, seriously, we gotta think about this.
Make a motion for something like that.
I think, I agree with Jimmy to a certain extent, but I also think that we need to stop some of it.
And I agree.
But
I don't have any problem if you
I
wanna
do-
put the signs out in the text and do a friendly letter.
Sometimes an officer says, slow down, don't drive so fast, gets a better response than writing out a ticket. I agree with that. But for right now, let's just get some letters, get some notifications out, let them give them a letter stating, hey, you're not in compliance with the odd even sprinkler.
All right, I'll make a motion to send a friendly letter out. Staff will write it. And the signs have already been approved? Okay. And we go with this for 30 days and just redo it, readdress it, see how the weather is, if it looks like we're getting a little more compliance, and do I got a second on that one?
I have a question just for the chief. If it's better, if we're noticing the violation, does it make sense to have code enforcement just post their door versus mailing the letter if we're just doing the notice?
No, we don't, most violations are mailed.
I prefer mail,
I think mailing
Plus,
would be
that's one less officer
time.
knocking on their door at
Right.
4 in the morning, so.
or anytime, I would say mail.
Probably cheaper too, to mail versus sending someone over there 5 minutes, 8 minutes to drive to a place to put out time is money.
Because my thought behind that is that I'm gonna have to have my officers, not code enforcement, do it, because he's not on that early, and collect the data and have our administrative staff issue out letters.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. I just was thinking by the time you send the letter, it could be a ways with the postal service. Like Public Works, we do a lot of door postings, but it makes sense if it's the officers doing it. Thanks.
All right, I have a motion from Councilman Heeman to
Second.
address any violations with a friendly reminder, and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries 3-1. All right, so let's move on to discussing some of this infrastructure. I mean, I don't know if you're looking to really get decisions made on that tonight. I know we're doing some research and stuff like that on well number 4, but
No, I'm not looking for any direction on this. This is just about me making sure that council understands kind of where we are sitting currently, and understanding that if there is no reduction in water use, more capital projects come sooner, and water rates go higher, and if we see it can find a reduction in water use, those capital projects can be farther out, rates can be lower, we have more time to save that money. Just to make sure that there's a clear understanding about that, and then to provide council a snapshot of what we're looking at, and I'll continue to work with Bolton and Mink over the summer here, and we'll,
what's
for
the
20
time frame on getting that information kind of collected? And, I mean, I think either way, we probably should move forward with that well.
Yes.
And we have, you said 3.5 million, I think, in the bank right now and in the water fund, right?
Yeah, roughly.
So, I mean, we can easily afford that well. I mean, we might not be able to drop water rates like we maybe would hope, but I mean, I think I'd much rather have that taken
yeah.
care of and
Back up,
done to where we're ready to go if we have any
Yeah,
situations come up.
The
so.
well 4 stuff is, we've already started that study,
Mhm.
council previously approved, and so we'll just keep marching down that road.
Okay.
So, under the mayor's recommendation, would this scenario raise water rates? I mean, he said we have 3 million in that fund, and so if we used 2 million of it, there's still enough money in the fund not to have to raise water rates?
I would say
don't know
this.
if there's a minimum.
So maybe I need to more clearly point this out. On the second page here, this is page 67, right? We've got 3 boxes. First one is currently scheduled. That's what's already in the plan that has been approved for 2023. Whether we have a reduction in water or not, there's a clear need for additional capital on future plans. What is currently scheduled was based on our 2018 water supply plan. And as we talked about before, population growth was pretty reasonably close. I mean, being 6% off is not bad, but we are going to have to adjust things based on water use. Water use has grown much faster than population. And based on that reality, there is going to be new infrastructure that gets added into the capital plan. The real question is how soon is it scheduled? If we just continue on the course that we're in, yeah, we're gonna have a lot of stuff that is gonna need to get built between now and 2030. And if we find lower water use one way or another, whether it's just rain or it's conservation, whatever it is, then we can spread that out considerably farther.
I mean, I think it's not necessarily that we're gonna have to raise water rates, but I mean, the hope is always that we can lower water rates, right? So, I think that may be where we might not wanna lower it, but I don't know that we'd have to raise rates, I mean, to
What
cover
you-
that well is.
The only way that we are not raising rates is that if we continue to expect significant population growth with decreased water use, right? So here, we're adding a mini water treatment plant and 2 additional wells for about $9 to $11 million. That's in today dollars, either in 2030 or 2040, somewhere in that time frame. That's real money that we're gonna have to come up with one way or another.
Well, I see what you're saying, yeah, if you're going with
You know,
that second
and
scenario.
it's the question of is if you're trying to sock away another $1 million to $1.5 million a year, or if you're trying to sock away, 500,000 or 600,000 a year. There's a big difference in what water rates are between those two numbers. It matters, and I had mentioned this to the mayor before the meeting, in the end, it's, I want council to be informed, and I think that, from my perspective, I think a lot of this comes down to is, are council members more comfortable having a conversation about reducing water usage, or are you more comfortable having a conversation about high water rates? I think when we add that kind of infrastructure to a capital plan, even if it's 20 years out, that's great. That's helpful in keeping water rates down, but that they will go up. They will just go up less. Especially if we intend to continue to avoid issuing debt. Now, and Mayor Gordon and I, we've discussed this more than once about whether or not for long-term infrastructure, whether or not you should or should not issue debt. And it's kind of a philosophical thing there about who should be paying for that. But nonetheless, debt or no debt on that, yes, we are going to have to stack up more money over the next 10 to 20 years than we were 12 months ago.
Well, and we're doing that water rate study September, or well,
Well, I'll be doing the utility rate studies I'll be trying to complete that in August. We'll want to get that together sometime, September, October. Basically, gotta have that in place before the end of the year is ideal. But if we are going down this path with the well study and trying to figure that stuff out, we could certainly move the rates down. I mean, if it's not time, if we don't have the information we need to make a great choice, I mean, we could push that out and change rates instead of on January 1, we could change them on, March 1 or May 1 or whatever. I mean, we can do that. I think we'd want to make sure we've got some decent information before we're making that. But hopefully that all lines up, hopefully.
okay, well, we got a plan of action there anyway.
Yeah.
All right, let's see, so K7, zoning code section 16, signs discussions, so, this was one that I had brought up, and, let's see. So, really, I just had a whole bunch of things that I wanted to go through on it, it really belongs in committee of the whole, is where we should really probably be having this discussion, so, I don't know. Do we want to table it, this topic, until committee of the whole next month, or?
That could be
Yeah,
a 4-hour discussion.
Oh, yeah,
just
right.
alone.
Yeah.
I think we
think
should,
so.
And Mayor,
For today.
what staff is looking for is just direction of what you're looking to change, or, so
Okay.
we can do some research, because no matter what gets brought up, or no matter where it gets brought up, committee of the whole or here now, there's a lot to look into, because this is such a robust section.
No, it's
So if there was some,
17 pages of sign ordinance, and I went through it line by line today.
if the direction's to simplify, that's one thing. If it's, we know about the black signs, or the neon temporary signs that we're gonna look into, but if there's any other just direction that we can bring forward to committee of the whole with additional, like, well, here's what that, changes, or here's what other, if you want us to find out what other cities allow, just some direction, and then we can start bringing drafts
is
forward.
there any way to simplify that? Just saying.
Okay, if that is the direction, we can look at that.
I think, like you said, 16 pages. Nobody's gonna read 16 pages. I ain't gonna sit down and read 16 pages.
No.
So, I mean, I totally understand what he's getting at. If we can simplify it, dummy it down, I'm a firm
Well, and there's
believer-
stuff in here that it's like, I mean, just silliness. I mean, let's see. Trying to find one that's kind of well, I don't know. I mean, it's just stuff that really isn't a huge concern, you know what I mean? And it's like, well, why is it even there, so.
Let's bring it back to committee of the whole, see if she can simplify some of it, and it can be done at that point.
I'll send you an email.
And one-day events shouldn't
include
have
me.
so much sign, like the farmer's market and like the auto show that they have, or on Main Street. They want to put signage out, they got to jump through hoops to do it. There should be easier language on some of these one-day events or weekly events, or, as long as they're taking their signs away. If it's a 3-hour event, they take their sign down right after, and
So you're saying potentially no permit for these very temporary events?
okay.
Is that maybe what you're thinking, or make it easier for them to put it up for that short-term event?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Well, yeah, simplify. I'll send you an email with kind of some ideas that I've got too, and if anybody else has anything they want to.
Yeah, I encourage all council members, if you could send us your thoughts on it, and then we can put together some options.
Sounds good.
All right, let's see. K8 now. Reject the bid for Isani Indoor Arena roof replacement.
So this resolution is for, first time we went out to bid for the indoor arena, remember this is the insurance, the hail damage, right? First time we went out, we got no bids on the indoor arena. Second time we went out, we got one. And it was for a little more than 2.4 million. The league has said, heck no. I certainly hope that the council will say the same, because for 2.4 million, you can get most of a building, not a roof. So, yeah, I don't want to jump ahead. So for that one, we need to formally reject that bid.
Motion to reject.
I
Second.
have a motion from Councilman Merrill and a second from Councilman Lundin. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
So the next one here is do the rebid. It's not lost on me that this has not gone well. So there's a few things that I've asked Wold Architects to change, and a few things that I've simply said we're going to change. One is we have gotten rid of everything in the bid specs about heat trace. I'm not interested in that. I don't think the council is, but we originally thought, well, let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of bids. Maybe that's something we want to consider. I think that's muddying the waters. I think it's making it more difficult for every contractor. So heat trace, any mention of heat trace, done, out of the plans and specs. I don't know. All right, so I don't want to say anything bad about vendors, contractors, so I will talk about the things that we will do to differently, rather than what did or did not go well. Other thing that I went forward and did was said, I don't like the bid form. I don't think it's clear. I don't think it's concise. And having gone back and forth with Wold several times, and other staff can attest to how many times we've had to go back and forth on that, we now have a bid form that I think provides clear instruction and meets our needs, and the League of Minnesota Cities, they're on board with that. They're okay with it. Another thing that we're going to do is I am going to be in charge of the bid process going forward. We're going to take that away from Wold. Jason is going to help get that on a different platform. We're going to have it available on Quest CDN. Jason and I will monitor who has or is not downloading those specs. And the other vendors who do not want to participate online will be able to come to City Hall. I've got flash drives prepared. I will hand them out. I will keep track of who's got those plans and specs, phone numbers, emails, that kind of thing. Additionally, in the bid process, all questions from any of the vendors will now come to me. We will not be going to Wold unless it is me going to Wold. Let's say this, going forward, I need to know that when a contractor, prospective bidder, has a question, that Wold is answering it in a timely fashion. And if I am playing traffic cop and I am filtering those questions, I will know whether or not those questions have been answered correctly and in a timely fashion.
So I had specifically asked to move this from consent into as a business item, because I had a contractor that was trying to put in a bid on this project. He was willing to put in a bid for everything, and he wanted to put in a bid, but the ball kept getting dropped by Wold. So we're not getting bids because the process is too complicated. This contractor was asking me dang near every day what was going on. He wanted to put in a bid, but so the fact that we're not getting any bids is because the process is so clunky and there's so much information. I mean, if you look at that, it's so long that a lot of these contractors like, I don't need to do this. Why would I? This process is so complicated. It's not worth my time just to put in a bid. So, I mean, the contractor that I talked to thought that the engineer's estimate was probably about fairly accurate. So the fact that that one bid came in at almost twice is kind of laughable. So, and the fact that this process is so clunky, these contractors know that the city is just gonna, a lot of cities will just be like, oh, motion to approve because we have to. Well, no, we don't have to. We have the power. We have the money. We're the people that should be the ones negotiating for our residents so that we can basically keep taxes as low as they can go. So I want to make the process as streamlined as possible, and I'm happy Mike's going to take it over, because whatever we're doing is just not working for a lot of these things, and it's been this way for years for a lot of projects. nothing is competitive when it comes to government, and we gotta figure out how to solve that issue, because it's costing everybody money.
So we'll advertise this in paper of record as required by statute, of course. It'll be on Quest CDN, but I've also the original bid process and the first rebid process, I've come across some complaints from different vendors about similar, right,
Yep.
to what Luke has mentioned. So today I did contact half a dozen of the vendors that I know were previously interested and gave them an update personally about where we're at, that the bid docs would be available tomorrow, made sure they understood where to go, made sure they had the project number to be able to search for it, and let them know that even though I'll be out the rest of the week, that if they want to come to City Hall and pick up the project manual and the plans and specs at City Hall, they can do that, and I will have a flash drive waiting for them, a clean flash drive, mind you, not one that's been reused, a clean flash drive, and we'll simply hand those out free of charge so that we make sure we're drawing up as much business as we can. So if there are any council members or anybody else that hears this and knows of a contractor that would like to participate, please put them in touch with me. Everybody should be contacting me by email about everything.
Sounds good.
We'll get this
Motion to
squared away.
approve.
Yeah, come on up.
So in regards to the roof being done, obviously the situation has been less than ideal with timeline. I would assume that maybe with a rebid, it's gonna get pushed out another 12 months maybe before the roof's actually done. My board was wondering if there is any short-term solution if we could get something patched up there any which way. I mean, we got about 8 to 10 leaks around the building. You know, it's,
So we've got a contractor that was out yesterday and today.
okay.
Tim, can you,
Oh, sorry, Tim, Rum River BMX.
We've got a contractor that was out there yesterday and today to try to address some of that stuff.
Okay.
Additionally, the plans and specs, and I double-checked this with a few contractors just to make sure I wasn't out of line, and I felt like I wasn't. Turns out I'm not. They already know the dates that you guys are gonna be in the building, right? They know that schedule. If they accept if they are the low bidder, they will have to sign the contract, right? Or give up their 5% bid bond. Once they have selected a start date, they have 30 days to complete, and completion must be by October 31st. More than one contractor said, yeah, that's not a problem. Not even close to a problem.
That's definitely good news. I mean, there's some
So,
concern we got.
so in the short term, yes, we're spending the little bit of money we need to keep you guys happy, your tenants, that should happen. But my expectation, which is why this is going tonight, why we're rejecting bids and calling for bids in the same meeting, not waiting 2 more weeks, is to be able to have this thing done before fall. That by the time we get to cold weather, we're not gonna have a, open hole in the ceiling.
Right, yep.
That's the expectation.
And that's fantastic. There was just some concern with, we have tarps hanging from the ceiling right now to direct water away from our audio equipment, and, it goes on the track and makes a mess. But
Yep.
that's good news. Thank you.
Yep, a lot of those roofing crews work really fast, so once they get it, they wanna get it done because they wanna get paid, so
Yep.
it's
Motion approved to go out for rebid.
second.
I have a motion from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. And that is an insurance-covered expense, but I mean, we still have an obligation to do our due diligence and make sure we're getting a good price on it,
Well,
so.
I mean, we're part of that group.
Yeah,
And-
right,
And
right.
it matters that the insurance trust does well, because,
Right.
we're part owner,
Right,
so.
yeah. All right, anything on the consent agenda? I want to thank Chosen Jewelers. Luke, I'm sure was just about to do that.
I was
had
about
beat
to.
him to it this time, so thank them for their donation. How much was it, Luke?
I think it's $500.
Yeah, it
Yep.
was $500, yes, sir. And then I did have one question. I probably should have brought this out, I guess, for discussion. I'm not doing it the right way here, but L4, are we gonna rehire for that summer events assistant? Or at this point in the summertime, are we just gonna say that's,
We did hire somebody for Public Works who is gonna be shared with that
Okay.
position, so.
so we're not gonna rehire
don't-
another person just for the
No,
little short time?
Jordan
Okay.
and Matt met earlier this week and decided how that time allotment was gonna
Okay.
work, so.
Motion approved the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Heeman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
I have a motion to adjourn from Councilman Lundin and a second from Councilman Merrill. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. We are adjourned.